Okay, so one of my long-term viewers, Echo, pointed out how squeaky my chair is, and now I can't unhear it. It's an issue. Anyways, Nameless Narcissist here, once again. A simple man diagnosed with NPD, trying to give you the truth on narcissistic personality disorder and the things that go on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Otherwise, keep in mind, I am no clinician, so I can only speak to my own experiences. Anyways, let's get started. So, I was watching the Cluster B Milkshakes stream yesterday, which, by the way, it was great. You can go check that out anytime. Well, after this video. Don't check it out until then. But as we were there, somebody mentioned I wasn't even sure who it was. I've never heard of them because I purposely don't keep updated on current events because they just start to piss me off. But apparently some woman was showing very, very strong narcissistic traits. And Cluster Milkshake kind of went on a little bit of a tangent about how, you know, like, oh my god, she's being stupid by being so, like, blatant about it, right? Which, first of all, let me point out, oh my god, I despise when people are just, like, narcissistic in a way that is almost pathetic. When I'm like, okay, like, literally, if you have NPD, you can take a look around you for, like, 20 minutes and be like, oh, people usually don't like when I'm blatantly grandiose and saying all these dickish things. Like, control yourself. Even when I was not aware, I, you know, masked up, so to speak. I don't think you need to be aware to do the bare minimum in terms of self-awareness. Jesus Christ. Also, how do they think that, like, I don't know, we care so obsessively about what people think of us and we're constantly self-monitoring? Like, how do they think, oh yeah, being like this is what's going to get me the admiration I think I deserve and want? Whatever. Anyways. But it got me thinking. Like, what it means for when somebody, because, like, people with NPD, we, you know, mask, so to speak. Because, well, I think all people with personality disorders do to some degree, but people with NPD a little bit more because of our pathological tendency to hide ourselves. Right? Like, we're always, like, hiding our true thoughts and feelings because we're either worried about how it's going to come off or, like, we're ashamed of it, whatever. And a lot of people like to get on kind of this, like, train of, like, oh, like, the real narcissist is when they start being angry and abusive and stuff, right? That's, like, the mask slipping, so to speak. And I think it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And I'm going to try to put that into words here. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it justice, though. So I would say there's, like, a couple layers of masking, so to speak. The first one is, like, the obvious, like, public persona being like, hey, what's going on? Like you're in, like, a Mickey Mouse cartoon, like, just being, like, super happy and charming or whatever. That's, like, my social mask, so to speak, right? That's the one that I want people to see. That's, like, more or less, if you would consider my persona here, so to speak. It's not really a persona because I'm being honest about my thoughts and feelings, but how I'm acting is true to the, like, public mask, so to speak. That's what we're always trying to get affirmation about, always trying to, like, garner attention and admiration with. Then I think then the next layer I would say is, like, I don't know what to call it. I would say not feigned vulnerability. It's like, it's vulnerability, but in the things that we aren't ashamed of and don't really care if people know, right? Like, I can talk all day about, like, yeah, my childhood was abusive. You know, dad beat me, whatever. Like, me callously explaining things that would be vulnerable for some people, but for me, at least, it doesn't really work the same way. Because it's like, I'm not ashamed of the fact that I was beaten as a kid. Like, I'm like, oh, like, fucking, that makes me stronger, whatever, right? There are parts of my childhood that I am more actively ashamed about, but that it's not really included in that. And then there's the layer beneath that, I would say, which is what a lot of people think is, like, real, right? And that's, like, the anger and, like, manipulation and shit like that. Don't get me wrong, those are genuine thoughts and feelings and behaviors that we're having. But is that the real person beneath everything? And I don't think it is. Because think of it this way, first of all, narcissistic personality disorder is obviously basically a set of defense mechanisms and traits in order to defend yourself against the internal shame, right? And anger is a defense against shame very often. Like for a long time, when I wasn't able to identify what shame was, it was it just came out as anger. And so that's a defense against shame. And so how is that what's real if that's still defending against the things that we cannot tolerate, right? And same with the manipulation. Manipulating people is just another defense, trying to keep control of things, or maybe stirring up chaos because I'm bored or can't deal with the internal chaos, so I have to externalize it. But on the other hand, that being said, then what is beneath the anger and the manipulation, stuff like that, stuff that most people consider real? Hard to say, first of all. I've said it before, it doesn't feel like there's much there, right? I feel very hollow beneath things like that. But there's been times that I think people have caught glimpses of it. And if you've been in a relationship with somebody with NPD, or you have had NPD, I think you kind of know what I'm referring to. Like those moments of like complete breakdown. Like, with my one ex, me sobbing, throwing up in the toilet, drunk as piss at 3 a.m., crying that like I was a broken, sick human and shit like that. Like, that was one of the most real I've ever felt in my life. And it was probably disturbing. It was probably awful. I would say when I'm drunk is like the most likely time that can happen. It happens other times, obviously, but like those complete breakdown defenses where we are just reduced to this neurotic, afraid, and sobbing child. I think that is what encapsulates what the reality of somebody with NPD is. It's because ultimately at the end of the day, we are just scared children throwing tantrums. And beneath our anger, beneath our manipulation, beneath our facades, however many layers there are, dozens, right? That is all that's basically left. We don't know even who we are other than the fact that we are broken, defective children. And it's horrifying for people to see me like that. People have on occasion, and I very much try to pretend that doesn't exist. That's never happened. Like, after the one instance that I mentioned, I literally did not even mention in the morning. I was just like, I just did not bring it up. I was like, yep, everything's fine. People have this. I've heard a couple people describe like looking from the outside, how something like that looks, and just like the like shaking in a fucking closet, sobbing and shit. And it's all earnest. It really is, because I don't want like the last. And I feel like if you have seen this, you're not really going to be thinking it's like a manipulation tactic or anything, because it's something that is like so intense. Like you can't really be like, oh, this is like calculated, right? It's like so intense and genuine, etc., etc. But I will reiterate, oh my God, is that genuine? Like, it's this complete loss of control, this complete breakdown and everything. I sometimes even struggle to know what's like real or not. I guess it's a form of dissociation in that way. Oh God, I hate it. I'm just like thinking about it now, and I'm thinking of all the people who have seen me like that, and I'm like, oh God, disgusting. Go away, you people. Never talk to me again, because I hate when people see me like that. But I do think that speaks to the core of the issue of people with NPD, especially those where it's like that's I think that kind of shows why it never fully goes away, right? When you see something like that, you're going to kind of realize like that's not something that gets fixed, right? There is deep stuff there that on the day-to-day we are defending against so effectively that we are not showing it. And a lot of times aren't even conscious of it. Like right now, like I cannot connect to that headspace I was in that time or any other time I broke down, right? And so it's like, how do you even like grapple with that? I do think the best case scenario with people with NPD is recognizing like, yeah, we have all these defense mechanisms to kind of defend against that terror of the internal emptiness, right? But that doesn't mean that our facade has to hurt people and everything. And in some cases, sometimes I even think that, like, maybe it's responsible for people with NPD to never enter a relationship with people who are normal, quote unquote, because there are going to be those breakdowns like that, and then our defenses will kick in and we'll, like, externalize the shame and anger we're feeling. And there will always be those moments. And maybe in post we can recognize them and be like, yeah, my bad, sorry about that. But for most people, things like that, if it's an occurrence that happens regularly, right? It's not always going to be there's a lot of people who, one, they're not going to see it like, it's like, oh, you said you would stop doing that, but you're not. You're kind of seeing it as just a refusal to change, what's really an impossibility to change. But the more important thing is even if they recognize it for what it is, it's fair for people to say, I can't deal with it, right? It's not anybody else's responsibility to try to heal us and tolerate us to the point that their mental health suffers. And even if they aren't suffering from it, if they just don't want to, that's also fair, and that's also within their rights. But I think, obviously, it should be treated more as it actually is, a just complete breakdown, like a complete breakdown and then a reaction that we're having subconsciously to that breakdown, rather than any sort of, like, conscious choice that after that happens, we're going to be, like, attacking. Because, again, it is super unconscious. Like, whenever I have a moment like that, I'll start externalizing that shame, and I can't connect me doing that with what just happened. Since it's so hard for me to identify my emotions and it's really hard for me to identify how they affect me, and it normally does unconsciously. Usually something will happen and I won't feel anything, and then, like, 2 days later I'll have some kind of fucking meltdown that I have no idea how to handle and no idea what's causing it. But that is what it is. It sucks. Trust me, it sucks, but whatever, who cares? Hope you enjoyed the video. I have end cards. I don't know what exactly they're like. You can subscribe right here, I think. I might be, like, pointing in the wrong directions, and I'm not sure if it's even up yet on the video. But, so please look at those and watch more of my videos and subscribe and stuff. Anyways, have a good day. Take your fucking meds.